Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Steady English Stories. Close your eyes for a moment, my friend. Picture yourself standing on a wide, open plain. There are no trees. There are no walls. There is only grass, moving in the wind, all the way to the edge of the sky. The air is cold. In the distance, you hear horses. Many horses. You feel small, don't you? Now imagine you are a boy on that plain, about 9 years old, and your father has just died. Your family has no protection, no home, no food stored away. The other families in your tribe, your own people, are packing up their tents and leaving you behind. Why would they do that? Because when there is not enough food, some tribes believed it was easier to abandon the weak than to feed them. That boy's name was Temujin. One day, the world would know him by a different name, Genghis Khan. How did a boy left to starve on the open steppe, that flat, dry grassland of Central Asia, grow up to build the largest empire the world had ever seen? That is the question we are going to answer together today, slowly, step by step, in plain English. And before we go further, my friend, if you are new here, please take 1 second to subscribe. This channel is a quiet place to learn English through real stories at a calm and steady pace. And I would love to have you stay with us on this journey. So, let's begin at the beginning. Temujin was born around the year 1162, near the Anan River, in what is now Mongolia. According to old legend, when he came into the world, he was holding a small clot of blood in his fist. A blood clot is a small, thickened lump of blood. To the people around him, this was a sign. It meant they believed that this child would grow up to be a warrior. His father, Yasuge, was a minor chieftain, a small local leader of a clan called the Borjigin. Life on the steppe in the 12th century was hard and often violent. Different Mongol tribes fought each other constantly, over land, over animals, over pride. There was no single Mongol nation yet. There were only many small groups, often at war with their neighbors. When Temujin was about 9 years old, his father took him to meet the family of a girl named Bort, who would one day become his wife. This was normal at the time. Families arranged marriages early to build alliances between clans. But on the journey home, alone, Yasuge stopped to eat with a group of Tatars, a rival tribe. They recognized him as an old enemy, and so, in secret, they poisoned his food. Yasuge made it home, but he died soon after. And this is the moment everything changed for young Temujin. Without their leader, the Borjigin clan fell apart. Can you imagine how frightening that must have felt? The other families, the ones Yasuge had once led, packed their tents and simply rode away, leaving Temujin's mother, Holin, alone with her children. They did not want to share their food with a widow and her young son. Holin was left to raise Temujin and his siblings alone on the open grassland, with almost nothing. For the next years, the family lived in deep poverty. They dug up wild roots to eat. They caught small animals, mice, fish, marmots, anything that would keep them alive. There were no servants now, no status, no protection from other tribes who might attack at any moment. The boy who legend said was born to be a warrior was, for now, simply trying to survive. But even here, in this hard and lonely childhood, we can see the first signs of who Temujin would become. He was fiercely loyal to his family, and just as fiercely competitive within it. When he was about 14, a serious conflict broke out between Temujin and his older half-brother, Begder, over hunting and family authority. The rivalry ended in tragedy. Temujin killed him. His mother was furious, and this dark, difficult moment shows us something important. Temujin was not a gentle boy shaped only by suffering. He was already someone who would fight, without hesitation, to protect his own position. Not long after this, more hardship arrived. A rival clan, the Taishiod, once allies of his father, captured young Temujin and enslaved him, placing a heavy wooden collar called a kang around his neck so he could not run or fight easily. For a time, it seemed his story might simply end there, an unknown boy, a prisoner, forgotten by history. But one night, with the help of a sympathetic guard, he hid in the freezing water of a nearby river, breathing through a gap in the current until his captors gave up the search. He escaped. That escape became known throughout the local tribes. People began to talk about this determined young man who refused to give up, who had survived when he should not have. Slowly, other young men began to seek him out, men who would later become his most trusted generals. What do you think happens to a boy who has lost everything, been abandoned by his people, enslaved by his enemies, and yet still refuses to disappear? He does not stay small forever. And the plains of Mongolia were about to become far too small for what he was about to build. Asterisk, asterisk, do you remember where we left him, my friend? A young man alone, an escaped prisoner, with almost nothing to his name, but with a growing group of loyal friends around him. That young man was about to change the shape of the world. Temujin's first step forward came through marriage. At 16, he married Bort, the girl his father had chosen for him years before. It was more than a personal bond. It connected Temujin to Borte's family, the Anjarat tribe, giving him allies and resources he badly needed. But soon after the wedding, tragedy struck again. A rival tribe, the Merkits, raided Temujin's camp and kidnapped Bort. What would you do, my friend, if the people you loved were taken from you by force? Temujin did not hesitate. He turned to two powerful men for help. A Khan who had once been sworn friends with his father, and Jamuka, a childhood companion who had become Temujin's Anda. Remember, that word means a sworn blood brother, closer than family. Together, the three men gathered warriors and struck back. Bort was rescued. This rescue mattered for a second reason too. It proved something to everyone watching. This poor, abandoned boy could organize men, win battles, and get results. Slowly, quietly, Temujin's reputation began to grow across the steppe. For years, Temujin and Jamuka rode side by side as allies. But two ambitious men rarely share one destiny forever, do they? Jamuka wanted to preserve the old ways, the traditional Mongol system, where noble families ruled simply because of their bloodline. Temujin wanted something completely different. He believed leadership should be earned, not inherited. He began placing loyal friends and skilled fighters into positions of power, regardless of which family they were born into. This one idea, that ability should matter more than birth, would later become the beating heart of his entire empire. The friendship between the two men broke apart. In 1201, a group of rival tribes crowned Jamuka as their own ruler, a title meaning universal Khan. War followed. Over the next several years, Temujin fought and defeated one rival group after another. the Tatars, the powerful Naiman tribe, and eventually Jamukha's own remaining forces. In 1205, Jamukha was captured. Temujin, it is said, offered his old friend one final chance to reunite with him. Jamukha refused. He asked, instead, to be given a noble death without his blood touching the ground, according to Mongol custom. Temujin granted this final request. Can you feel the weight of that moment, my friend? Two boys who had once sworn brotherhood as children, standing now on opposite sides of history, until only one remained. By 1206, there was no one left strong enough to oppose him. Every major tribe on the Mongolian steppe, the Merkets, the Naimans, the Tatars, the Karites, and Temujin's own Mongol clans had been defeated or absorbed. That summer, at a great gathering beside the Anon River called a kurultai, a council of chiefs and leaders, Temujin was proclaimed ruler of them all. He was given a new name that day, the name history would remember, Genghis Khan, meaning something close to universal ruler. He was about 44 years old. A boy once left to starve on the open grassland was now the single leader of every Mongol tribe. But Genghis Khan did not simply want a title. He wanted a nation that would last. So he tore apart the old tribal system completely. Instead of organizing his people by family bloodline, he broke them into military units of 10, 100, and 1,000 men, mixing different tribes together on purpose. Loyalty, from now on, would flow only toward him, not toward old clan names. He introduced a code of law called the Yasa, which applied to everyone, from the poorest herder to his own sons. He rewarded skill and bravery with wealth and rank, no matter a man's background. For a nomadic society that had spent centuries fighting itself apart, this was a revolution, and once his own people were united, Genghis Khan turned his attention outward in 1209. He led his armies against Western Shia, a kingdom to the south. Then, in 1211, he set his sights on something far larger, the mighty Jin dynasty of northern China, a civilization far richer and more populated than anything the Mongols had ever known. Many rulers would have looked at such a powerful empire and turned away. Genghis Khan did not. His armies moved with a speed and coordination that no one in the settled world had ever seen before. Mongol riders could travel enormous distances in a single day, communicating across the empire through a relay system of messenger stations called the Yam. They studied their enemies carefully, borrowed new technology such as siege engines from the very civilizations they conquered, and struck with terrifying discipline. City after city fell. Kingdom after kingdom bent to his will. The boy who once dug up roots to survive on the open steppe was now the most feared man on the continent, building what would become the largest connected empire the world had ever seen. But my friend, absolute power rarely comes without a cost. And as Genghis Khan's empire grew larger and larger, another force was quietly building to one made of blood, fear, and the terrible weight of his own reputation. What began as the story of a survivor was slowly turning into something far darker. So there we left him, my friend Genghis Khan, ruler of the largest empire the world had ever known, but a man now standing on the edge of his own darkness. By 1219, his empire already stretched from the Pacific coast of China to the edges of Central Asia. But that year, something happened that revealed the harsher side of his character. Genghis Khan sent a trade caravan, a group of merchants, to the Khwarazmian Empire, a powerful Islamic kingdom to the west, hoping to open peaceful trade. Instead, the governor of a border city had the merchants killed and their goods stolen. When Genghis Khan sent ambassadors to demand justice, the Khwarazmian ruler had them executed too. What do you think a man like Genghis Khan would do after being insulted like that? He answered with total war. Mongol armies swept through the Khwarazmian Empire with devastating speed, destroying great cities such as Samarkand and Bukhara. Historians still argue about how many people died in this campaign. The numbers are enormous and terrible. This is one of the hardest parts of Genghis Khan's story, my friend, and we should not look away from it or make it smaller than it was. His conquests brought immense suffering to millions of people. At the same time, once cities submitted peacefully, Genghis Khan often allowed remarkable religious freedom, protected trade routes, and welcomed scholars and craftsmen from every culture into his service. He was, as the old saying goes, about many powerful figures in history, not a simple man, capable of both extraordinary destruction and surprising tolerance. By 1225, Genghis Khan had returned home to Mongolia, ruling territory that stretched almost from one end of Asia to the other. He might have rested. He did not. One kingdom still troubled him, Western Xia in northwestern China, a former vassal state that had refused to send troops for his western campaigns and had tried to break away from his rule. Genghis Khan saw this as betrayal, and he could not let it go unanswered. In early 1227, while hunting, Genghis Khan fell from his horse and was badly injured. He was already in his mid-60s, an old man by the standards of his time. His advisors urged him to rest, to return home and heal. He refused. Instead, he pushed forward with the campaign against Western Xia, determined to finish what he had started. His health never recovered. In August of 1227, as his armies closed in on the Western Xia capital, Genghis Khan died in his camp. The exact cause remains uncertain even today. Some records point to illness, others to his riding injury, others simply to old age, catching up with a body that had spent a lifetime at war. His followers kept his death a secret for a time, fearing it would weaken the army before the final victory. On his deathbed, it is said, he gave orders for the complete destruction of Western Xia. His sons carried out that order. The kingdom was erased. His body was carried back toward Mongolia in complete secrecy. To this day, no one knows exactly where Genghis Khan is buried. Legend says that everyone who saw the funeral procession pass by was killed to protect the secret forever. Whether or not that particular story is true, one thing is certain: the location of his grave has never been found. And yet, my friend, his death was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning of something even larger. His sons and grandsons, men like Ogedei and later Kublai Khan, continued expanding the empire for decades after he was gone, eventually stretching Mongol rule into Russia, Persia, and further into China than Genghis Khan himself had ever reached. At its greatest size, the Mongol Empire covered more connected land than any empire in human history, before or since. What can we, sitting here centuries later, take from a life like this? Here is one lesson, plainly stated. Genghis Khan rose from nothing, abandoned, hunted, enslaved, because he refused to let his beginning decide his ending. Hardship did not destroy him. It shaped the discipline and determination he carried for the rest of his life. But his story also warns us of something else, that unlimited power, unchecked by mercy, leaves behind devastation as well as achievement. Real greatness, my friend, is not only about how far you rise. It is also about who you become and what you leave behind once you get there. And this brings us to you, my friend, and to your own journey. Learning a new language can feel very much like standing on that open, endless steppe we imagined at the very beginning, uncertain, exposed, without a clear map forward. Some days, you may feel like that abandoned boy, wondering if you will ever truly master this language. But remember, Temujin, progress rarely comes in one dramatic leap. It comes from small alliances, a new word here, a clearer sentence there, built patiently, day after day, until one day you look back and realize how far you have truly come. If this story moved you today, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, so more stories like this one can reach you. And I would love to know, which figure from history would you like us to explore next? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read every one. Until next time, my friends, keep learning.